My name's Kevin Green. I'm with the Planetary Health Alliance, and I want to welcome you to the 2022 Planetary Health Annual Meeting at Harvard University. I would now like to take the opportunity to introduce Professor Antonio Saraiva, who will moderate this session on reflections on the state of our natural systems. Professor Saraiva is the head of the Planetary Health Brazil, hosted the Institute of Advanced Studies at the University of Sao Paulo, who brings together members of various Brazilian institutions. Antonio is also a member of the Planetary Health Alliance's steering committee. You can learn more about our moderators and speakers on the annual meeting website. Please give a warm welcome to Professor Saraiva.
Thank you, Kevin. It's my pleasure, my great pleasure to be here with you in person after a number of years. Thank you to the organizers, Sam, Marie, Jeremy, Joanna, and Kevin, and the others for inviting me to moderate this interview with two colleagues that have an incredible work. They'll tell us about their work and try to make a link with the previews and the next session. Our interviewees are Sione Tuitahi. Sione is the Executive Director of the Health Promotion Forum of New Zealand, Runanga Wakapiki Ake Ite Hawara o Aotearoa. He's also the Global President of the National Union for Health Promotion and Education, the first indigenous person to be elected to the position. Sione is a poet and a grandfather. He wants to leave behind a healthier planet to his grandchildren and all the grandchildren of the world. He's joining us online from beautiful New Zealand, where it is now maybe 3:30 in the morning, or 3 in the morning, or in the night. So thank you so much for being there. I hope you're there. We also have Laetitia Sieffert. Laetitia works at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, on linkages between health and biodiversity, as well as gender and biodiversity. She has 10 years experience working across health and the environment. She previously worked with UNITAID in Geneva and with a social entrepreneurship venture in Bombay, India. She's joining us from beautiful Montreal, Canada. Thank you both for being here with us. And I'd like to start with the following question. I have to remember that they're there. You work in very relevant organizations, which are deeply involved with global environmental change and its effects from different perspectives. After listening to the previous speakers and the previous session, and of the opening ceremony, that wonderful ceremony, how do you react? And how is the planetary health framework being considered within your organization to help address these challenges to revert environmental degradation and its impact? So over to you. Maybe you can start with Laetitia, ladies first.
So thank you very much, and very pleased to be here with you connected virtually. So listening from the previous session, I think what struck me is that there's really a common sense of emergency in everything that we've heard, and clearly science showing us that many planetary boundaries have been breached. This is also very concerning for the Secretariat to the Convention on Biological Diversity. There's around 1 million of species which are at risk of extinction, and this global rate of acceleration is going to accelerate if no action is taken. And so coming to planetary health and the work of the convention, which was founded in 1992 at the Rio Summit, there's been many decisions of the Conference of the Parties on Biodiversity and Health Linkages. And several of them have acknowledged the value of One Health approaches. There was also at the last COP a decision that was taken with a guidance on integrating biodiversity considerations into One Health approaches. And there's currently discussions also on developing a global action plan for biodiversity and health. And as you may know, the CBD is going to also host COP15 later in December this year in Montreal. And as part of the COP15, there's also a global agreement for biodiversity that is expected to be endorsed. It's called the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And I wanted to flag that in the current draft, it opens with the first sentences, that is, biodiversity is fundamental to human well-being and a healthy planet. So I think this is a good statement in line with the planetary health approaches. And I also would like to mention that health is a cross-cutting issue in the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, and that there's also a specific target 12, that is also related to access to blue and green spaces. So this is not really a new issue to the Convention on Biological Diversity, but we are glad that with COP15 and also with the work that all the partners are doing, including Planetary Health Alliance, that there's, I think, increasing awareness about this issue. So maybe I'll pause here for a moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Laetitia, for this great start. Sione, again, thank you for being here and good morning.
Yes, thank you, Antonio. A very good morning from us here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's a privilege to have been invited and to speak along with Laetitia. So it's wonderful to join online with you, Laetitia. And the International Union for Health Promotion and Education is honored to participate. And I would like to say that planetary health is now central to our work at IUHPE. Listening to the session that has just closed, it's a mixed feeling of despair and hope. But I'd like to focus on hope. Despair because it has been decades of many collectives, individuals, institutions working on this issue of the health of the planet, our ecology and environment, and all the things that have been mentioned. And it's disappointment that we have to come this far, and yet not much. We have not been able to turn it around, but we have to live on hope. And so the hope is that there are new developments, as has been mentioned by the panelists themselves, in biodiversity, blue food, the food system, food security, and of course, funding. There was also the point about chemicals, focusing on plastic that Phil talked about. All these things are very, very important. And of course, the funding side of things. But I think what Celia mentioned is actually the core of what we are looking here, the human dimension, the contribution of humans to either causing the problem or part of the solution. So with the International Union, we brought planetary health to the center of our work in 2019. Of course, many of you would know that in 1986, the environment was a part, and still is a part of the Ottawa Charter. But over the last few decades, health promotion, our field, has been ecologically blind. The focus has been very much on social determinants and more recently commercial determinants. But we are now bringing planetary health into the center, and we give it a more comprehensive definition and understanding. And it's the combination of the Rockefeller 2019 Lancet Commission definition, and also the definition by the two legacy statements of the International Union that were produced in 2019. And we adopt that position and that understanding because it's comprehensive, it's inclusive of science, ethics, indigenous knowledge, and spirituality as well. But again, as have been demonstrated by the previous panelists, our planet is broken. For us indigenous peoples, it is our Mother Earth that is suffering, sinking and burning. And we are a one human family, on a one spaceship called a planet, and we must work together. There's still hope, as has been indicated by the panelists, and there is hope if we think together and work together and elevate our consciousness to a new level where we can find solutions rather than looking around at the level where the problems, have been created and are being, still being created. The other point to mention is that although our meeting this week focuses on the environment, from a health promotion perspective, the challenges that we face, there are a few, and it's the convergence of these global challenges that make things even more complex and complicated and difficult for us. As you know, there's the geopolitical crisis, the economic situation of the world, pandemics, as has been mentioned in the previous panel, and a fifth global challenge that has been mentioned today, but yet to be mentioned and brought to the center of our equation and our conversation is the ethical, the moral, the spiritual crisis. Humanity is at a loss of its purpose, and we cling more to material prosperity at the expense of ethical prosperity of our relationship with the environment, with our Mother Earth, and our relationship with each other as fellow human beings. And my final point before I hand it back to you, Antonio, is that some details of our work, as I said, planetary health is now the center of the work of the International Union for Health Promotion and Education. It is in our strategic plan. It's one of the core determinants that we are looking at. It's a field that is new to some, but it's not new, especially to the indigenous people. And we use our global network, our regional, down to the national and organizational level as well. And we reach out, we try to collaborate and partner. Last year, we participated at the Planetary Health Alliance annual meeting that you organized from Sao Paulo University. And we also have a global working group on Waiora planetary health and human well-being, a point that Celia mentioned earlier. We need to make sure that the human dimension is at the center. It's connecting the dots between the health of the environment and the health of humanity. We also work closely with the World Health Organization. We contributed to the Geneva Charter for well-being, and this is part of our effort to contribute to this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sione. Making a link to what you just said and to what we heard at the opening ceremony with that colleague of ours from the Massachusetts tribe, which was, I think it was really inspiring. I have another question. Science and technology have sought and offered solutions to many of the problems related to global change. What is missing? Is it more science and technology? Maybe yes. Political will? Human behavior change? All of that in which order? And how does the planetary health framework help with addressing these challenges and advancing solutions from your perspectives and your institutions?
You go first, Laetitia.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Antonio, you mentioned the role of science, and I really wanted to also anchor the work of the Convention on Biological Diversity in that, and also mentioning the role of IBES and its leading work on biodiversity-related science. And I think we have more and more evidence about the fact that we've breached many of the planetary boundaries, the states of ecosystems. I think you made a very important point in stating that as an introduction to the question. And I think what is missing, and really building on Sione's point, is this kind of systems thinking approach, and that is also very much in line with the planetary health framework, and that all those issues are very complex, and there's many more co-benefits of advancing the health of the people and the planet alongside. And so I think there's still a misunderstanding on how everything is related and is correlated. So definitely the work of the Planetary Health Alliance and many partners in advancing that understanding is definitely key. And I think the planetary health framework can be also very instrumental in that. And also, yes, the spiritual crisis, I think that we spoke about, also comes very much to the individual behavior. As well, that I think there's lots of reports saying what we need to do, but how do we really transform ourselves? And I just wanted to reflect a little bit on the planetary health framework. I think what I found very interesting in the framework is that there's really this interconnection with nature that is at the center, this idea of systems thinking and complexity, and that everything is underpinned with equity and social justice. And I think this framework can help us in several ways. I think the first one would be our understanding of those issues and the environmental determinants of health. The other one would be advocacy, really to spread the message that caring for the planet means caring for health. And then also in terms of solution on actions, because of all the co-benefits that they are in implementing environmental policies for health. So yeah, I think it's a very helpful framework to help us think this through also and advance on those issues.
To me and to IUHPE, the International Union for Promotion, there might be 3 or 4 things that are missing at this point. The first one is the will, the political will, or the moral authority and the moral courage to do the right things for the right outcome and do it with the right spirit. We have it there, but we are not fully there yet. And so it's something that we need to work together on. And it is a societal effort. It's not just the institutions or the governments and intergovernmental organizations. It has to be the individual, the community, and institutions. So those 3 major protagonists. Perhaps another missing link is, it has been mentioned by the panel, joining up the dots. I think we are still in the process of joining up. There are quite a few strategies around the place from over the last few decades, and we can go back to the 90s to Agenda 21, the MDGs and now the SDGs. And of course, last year in April, the Planetary Health Alliance, Sao Paulo Declaration. And as I mentioned before, there's the IUHPE legacy statements from Rotorua here in New Zealand, 2019. And December last year, we have the Geneva Charter for Wellbeing. All these charters, these international and regional instruments, have got a strategic direction and goals, and also lines of action. And so it's about joining the dots, but also beginning to implement. A lot of words and good intention. What needs to happen more is that we walk our talk and we walk together. I think also a missing link is the need to elevate our consciousness, as I mentioned before, to elevate our consciousness to we are on a one planet and one human family. We still are living at the stage where we assume that sovereignty rests with the state, when actually all the challenges, the global challenges that we face cannot be solved by one nation, one state. We have to work together as a global community. And so that consciousness needs to be inculcated to the individual communities and institutions. At the moment, if I may use the analogy of our house, we live in different rooms, but in the same house. And our house is burning. Our global planetary house is burning. We still focus on our individual rooms. It's time for us to actually work together to save, our house. And so it's elevating our consciousness to our global citizenship responsibility and reconceptualizing our reality to accept that oneness and that interconnectedness, not only the connectedness of us humanity to Mother Earth, to the planet, but also our connectedness in our relationship with each other as fellow human beings. We are still at the kind of adolescent stage, but we should be at the level of adulthood and work together. If we continue to think at the adolescent stage, the solutions will be at that stage. So we need to elevate both our thinking, and our actions. Another point is to expand our horizon of understanding well-being, not just physical, but also ecological and spiritual as well. We develop our economic well-being to the stage that there's extreme poverty at one end and extreme wealth at the other. And we do that compromising our relationship with each other. So that means also we need to reset our global values and bring in values that will bring well-being to humanity, to communities, and also to the planet itself. Reciprocity, justice, equity, loving compassion and equality, and moving from competition to complementarity. So it's about collaboration and solidarity. Those are a few things that can be added on to strengthen, our various strategies and approaches.
Thank you both. Since you mentioned the São Paulo Declaration, and I'd like to remember that when we worked on that declaration, we were inspired by the Curitiba statement that was organized by the organization that Sione is currently leading. So as a result of the previous Planetary Health annual meeting, this community produced the São Paulo Declaration on Planetary Health, which is a living document in the sense that it's there to be used by all of us whenever possible. I love to hear forgot the name. Anyway, my colleague from the Minnesota, Teddy Porter, sure, Teddy Porter. I couldn't, sorry, Teddy. Blank. Mentioned that she uses that every time she can, and I do the same, just taking the slides to address specific audiences. So besides that, we can produce other texts, more specific texts. So how can you and your organizations help publicize it and make use of it? So that's it. So how can you do that, and how are you doing that? Helping us publicize.
Maybe
and
I'll
make
go
use of
first this time, and I'll be very brief and leave the rest of the time to Laetitia. We are in the process of lining up all these, strategies and statements and declarations. For example, we are studying the Sao Paulo Declaration. It's an amazing statement, and we compared it to what you mentioned earlier, Antonio, to the Curitiba statement, as well as other statements from IUHBE, as well as the Geneva Charter for Well-being. And we pick the common threads and themes in a systematic way and weave that around our strategic plan and put in line some actions there. At the same time, we promote not only the Sao Paulo declaration, but also the other statements that I mentioned. So it's about promoting educating, but also looking at how to implement, some of the key lines of actions from those statements. So it's still at the early stage for us, but it's where we are. I think the other major action for us is to reaching out and collaborate and work together, joining the dots, as I said earlier. And, we count this invitation to speak as part of our ongoing collaboration with PHA, as we have done in Sao Paulo last year. Thank you. Over to you, Laetitia.
Thanks very much, Sione. Well, from the Convention on Biodiversity, we are a party-led organization. So the decisions are really taken by the parties. And so as I've mentioned, there's been several decisions recognizing linkages between biodiversity and health. Interestingly, those decisions recognize rather the One Health approach, but among other holistic approaches, so that include planetary and eco-health. And there's going to be this global biodiversity framework, again, highlighting the benefits of the One Health approach. And I also wanted to flag, because we spoke about that also, that the convention has also a special programs also, and the global biodiversity framework also has references to the rights and participation of indigenous peoples. Those are also, very strong activities also going on there. So I would say that the convention has, I think, its own frameworks, and a little bit more, I would say, on the One Health approach to date.
Thank you. Well, our next session will be on the impacts of the changing natural systems on human health. What do you have to tell us about it? Either your work or your personal opinion about it. Do you think we're paying enough attention to this, even after going through a pandemic like COVID?
Yeah, so I think for the COVID-19 pandemic and like the emergence of other diseases, I think it has really shown us also the impact of environmental changes such as deforestation, climate change, land use change on disease patterns. So kind of hoping this has helped maybe to open the eyes of the global audience on linkages between the health and the planet and the health of people. And I think another aspect of COVID-19 also is that it has also shown us the benefit of blue and green spaces, as I think many people thought also outdoor spaces, and that was actually also very helpful for mental health. But yeah, I also have a feeling that this moment that we are now in with the recovery maybe is not where it should be. There's still 500 billion that are spent every year that are harmful to biodiversity, and it's 5 or 6 more times than the spending on biodiversity. And there's really an opportunity there to redirect those investments for more biodiversity friendly measures. So definitely, I'm kind of feeling maybe we are kind of losing a momentum there. But a way of changing that is really, I think, to be explaining and building on this narrative that environment is really a key determinant for health. And I think the planetary health framework is very, very instrumental for that. I think it's really time to not be shy and really spread this message really at a global level. And as Sione said, it's really a different level of society, from the community, the individual, the government level, really all of society, all of government approach that is needed.
Yeah, like what Laetitia said, COVID-19 has taught us a big lesson. It's a portal through which we go through to a new reality where we need to soul search ourselves, fellow human beings, and take stock, and to learn that the way we behave against Mother Earth is not sustainable, not only to the planet, but also to ourselves. And we need to all work together. And we have a choice to continue the lifestyle and we face more perils, or to sit around and have the conversation how we can solve this together. That new reality means that we have to adapt our mind and our heart So joining the dot also includes the journey from the head to the heart, from the mind to the soul, because otherwise we'll continue to abuse Mother Earth, and we are in conflict with each other, and we continue to face not just more, but even bigger consequences, more than what we are currently facing. So it starts with the inner environment, not the external environment. Science and technology have their role to play, and that's very important. But it comes back to us because all of these challenges that we are facing, these crises, are human-induced. We are the problem, but we can also be the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes left, so I'd like to ask you a last question, and if there's time, I'll open to the audience. So building on what is the abstract of our session, what would be your vision of a thriving world for all people and the planet?
So maybe to take that question, I would like to build on the vision for biodiversity 2050, that is living in harmony with nature, where biodiversity is valued, conserved, restored, wisely used to sustain a healthy planet and delivering benefits that are essential for all people. So really this idea also of equity and social justice also as an underpinning pillar. And of course, to be able to achieve that, and as Sione eloquently told us, it's really about transformational, also individual change. Really, that's I think connecting also with our heart, as Sione pointed out. And to achieve that, we cannot continue business as usual. At the Convention on Biological Diversity, we have published a publication called the Global Biodiversity Outlook, its 5th edition, where we suggest that there should be 8 transitions that would be needed to realize this vision for biodiversity, and that should look at land and forest, freshwater, fisheries and oceans, sustainable agriculture, food systems, cities, infrastructure, climate action, and the last one is on One Health. So really realizing that all those transitions are very interdependent, and those would really help us in achieving this biodiversity vision that I shared, and I think that is also very well framed also for me at a personal level for thinking this through.
Thank you. Sione?
Yeah, I'll put on my indigenous hat to explain the vision I see in the future. As you know, the indigenous perspective on the relationship between humanity and Mother Earth is that we are inextricably one. We cannot separate the one from the other. And while material prosperity is very important for our physical sustenance on this plane of existence, equally, if not more important, is the spiritual prosperity, the relationship with Mother Nature, the caring, kind, compassionate, and loving relationship that we should have with each other as fellow human beings. We just look at the situation in Ukraine, and that's not the only flashpoint in the world. And the Ottawa Charter, the first determinant there, or the first prerequisite, is peace. And it's now 30 plus years since the Ottawa Charter. We haven't seen peace completely yet, and the Geneva Charter of Wellbeing reminds us that. So the vision is one home for one human family, and that's planetary health to indigenous peoples, at least from our part of the world. And as I said before, we need to reset our values. We need to bring up those values that will unite us, bring harmony, bring fairness and equity to share our common collective resources. As one wise man once said, there is enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. And it's about elevating our consciousness to realize that we are one human family on one small planet. we can choose to live together by working together, or we perish together. So one home for one human family, one healthy home, or one planet, one people, and one health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. It was a very inspiring conversation, not an interview, but a conversation. And to take Sione's last words, remind you that we're here for the fam, so we're here to be a family, as he said. So thank you all, and with that we end this interview, this conversation.